This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallet, and if you kill me, you'll never know where they buried the gold. Today we're going to be taking a look at the creepypasta entitled The Elevator Ritual. This is posted to the 15 Hours Creepy Stories Tumblr. You can find it at the link below. Let's get into it and see what it has on offer. Some of you may have heard of a satanic ritual called the Elevator Ritual that went around the internet a few years ago. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a game where you enter an elevator by yourself in a building with at least 10 floors and press the buttons in a certain order. When you reach the final floor, you'll be in an alternate dimension, which is the same as Earth. Except there's a large red cross in the sky, and you're the only person alive. Well, I have never heard of this, and I presume that you, before clicking on this video, had never heard of it either. But let's press on with this idea. It's a very catching idea right up front. I'm interested. I want to know more. A red cross in the sky, that's an interesting visual. You're the only person on Earth? That's also interesting. I wonder if there are like a bunch of dead bodies around though. Obviously I assume this was just another Reddit urban legend, but since me and my friend John are really into this kind of stuff, we decided to give it a go. There's a hotel just down the road that has over 10 floors, so we psyched each other up and went down there at 1 a.m. back on a cold night in March. Luckily, there was no one around, which made it easier to play the game. But it also made it creepier so we could scare each other easier. Not a great sentence there. Which is something we've always done. And we're still great at it despite the fact that we always expect it. Alright, kind of iffy on this part. I like the idea of, we went to, a local hotel and did this and blah, blah, blah. That I like. What I don't like is that, we cite each other out for it and like, well, you're just doing this ritual to see if it actually works. I don't know that you would be scared. Let me know, in the comments below if, you would get scared doing this kind of thing. It's different than if you're like going to, a haunted, mansion or something like that, or a haunted house, whatever kind of haunt where you're supposed to be scared, or a scary movie, what have you, stuff like that. There's an element of, apprehension there. I'm maybe let me know. I wouldn't be scared to try this. I would be like worried about hotel security because I'm a Boy Scout, but other than that, once we reached the hotel, we crept through reception and made our way to the elevator, which wasn't hard to find since it was almost in sight from the entrance to the building. Since the elevator states that you have to be alone in the since the ritual states that you need to be alone in the elevator when you perform it, we tossed a coin to decide who was going to go first. Heads, I went first. Tails, he went first. Unfortunately, it was heads, so I had to be the first one to test out the satanic ritual alone in the elevator in a gross hotel. I got in, waited for the doors to close, and began the ritual. I don't know about you, but I'm visualizing a very low-class, gross hotel that I've been to, where I'm sure that every resident there was just someone making an impromptu meth lab. Didn't feel exactly safe in that hotel, but I'm visualizing that, and that's helping the story along, helping ground it. But the idea that you would flip a coin to like see who's doing this first, that's a little silly. That's a little melodramatic, if you will. Probably unnecessary. Yeah, I'm not happy with the way that they're negotiating that. I got my phone out and looked at the notes I made as to how to perform the ritual, as it's pretty complicated, but these are the rules, and they're about to get into it. But I will say, I like that instead of just giving us the ritual, I think that a lot of the ritual stories are very bland because they just get into those specifics and then it's like all hypothetical. This is more grounded because it's actually walking us through the ritual. It's not how do you do the ritual, it's there was a ritual and here's us doing it. And that I think is more personable. But let's see how you do it. Enter your chosen building and get into the elevator on the first floor alone. Do not proceed if anyone else is in the elevator with you. Press the button for the fourth floor. When the elevator reaches the 4th floor, do not get out. Instead, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 2nd floor. When you reach the 2nd floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 6th floor. When you reach the 6th floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 2nd floor. When you reach the 2nd floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 10th floor. When you reach the 10th floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 5th floor. So, I'm going to take a break before we continue on with this because it goes on a little bit more. But I will say that this is, I don't know that it's needlessly complicated. There needs to be this weird, complicated ritual happening. And I'm sure that we're going to have more explanation, but it does seem weird that, what if someone else gets on? Does that cancel out the ritual? It says that you have to go to the hotel alone. Does that mean that this is already canceled out by bringing someone else into the hotel? These are questions I have and why these rituals are stupid. Once you reach the 5th floor, a young woman may enter the elevator. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. She is not what she seems. She's a man. Press the button for the 1st floor. If the elevator begins ascending to the 10th floor instead of descending to the 1st, you may proceed. If the elevator descends to the 1st floor, exit as soon as the doors open. Do not look back. Do not speak. So this is falling into the very generic ritual kind of thing of there's this thing and usually a person. Do not look at them. Do not speak at them. These kinds of things. If you reach the 10th floor, you may choose to get off the elevator or stay on it. If you choose to get off and the woman entered the elevator on the 5th floor, she will ask you, "Where are you going?" Do not answer her. Do not look at her. You are now in an alternate dimension where you are the only person on Earth. I began the ritual. I pressed the buttons in the correct order and began to ascend and descend the floors of the hotel, at the time knowing that nothing would actually happen. I was planning my made-up story that I was going to tell John to scare him after I got out of the elevator, but how the ritual worked and that I was in an alternate dimension. I was laughing to myself and thought of seeing his terrified face, but then something happened that turned my smile into a face of pale horror, made my blood run cold, and made me start shaking with fear. Did you have a mirror compact or something? Were you looking at your own face? Were there mirrors in the elevator? How do you know that you had a pale face of horror? That's just, silly to say that. Silly things to say. Writer, author, narrator, terrified face. Also weird that you would think that pranking him like that would be effective. I don't know. Maybe this person, this narrator, has a very gullible friend. I reached the 5th floor, and a woman in a white dress entered the elevator. I stood frozen for about 5 minutes before my brain kicked into the action, and I remembered that the only way to escape this was to finish the ritual, so I pressed the rest of the buttons. I hit the final button, praying that she would descend to the 1st floor and go back to the normal world, rather than ascending to the 10th floor and entering the alternate dimension. But to my horror, as my fingers trembled, I pressed the final button. The elevator began ascending. I almost broke down, but I managed to keep it together because I knew that if I stayed calm, it would be easier for me to escape. So, it's unclear what you even get from doing this ritual. You get put into this alternate dimension where you're the only person on Earth. I don't know what the lady has to do with it, but you're the only person on Earth. I guess maybe you just have a bunch of free stuff, but you're really lonely in this dimension. I guess if you have, no friends, this is a great dimension to be in. If loneliness doesn't bother you, maybe you could go there and just have unlimited food, all the Twinkies you want, unlimited resources, but I don't know what usually these rituals have some sort of risk or reward factor. This one just has risk factor, and it looks like they're going to end up in this alternate dimension with a red cross in the sky. That really hasn't been explained or elaborated on or alluded to past this point. I decided that as soon as I reached the 10th floor, I would step out of the elevator, then get straight back in and repeat the ritual, as this is how you return to the real world. Okay. The door, so, you just go there to see it, I guess is the idea. You just go there to visit. The doors opened, I stepped out and was momentarily fixated on the glowing red cross in the sky. Then I turned around to step back into the elevator, but was stopped stone cold in my tracks. The elevator wasn't there. In a panic, I began to hyperventilate and collapse to the floor. When I finally got up, I noticed an elevator to my left at the end of the corridor about 100 meters away. Was about 100 meters away. It was. I wasn't prepared to waste any time or explore this dimension. So I sprinted to the elevator. I repeatedly slammed the buttons to open the doors, but it felt like it was taking a lifetime. Then I heard something that made me slam the buttons even faster. Footsteps coming towards me from behind. So you're supposed to be in this dimension where there's nobody else, but you're hearing footsteps coming at you. That's not a bad idea, but why wouldn't you want to explore this dimension? Like, you went through all this effort just to get there, and now you're in a hurry to leave. I would want to see what's going on in there. Luckily, the elevator opened when it sounded like they were right behind me. So I stepped in and frantically pressed the buttons to undo the ritual. When I reached the first floor, the doors opened and I laughed through relief and happiness when I saw John standing there, telling me to be quiet so the receptionist didn't hear us. What happened? What was it like? John asked me. I told him that it didn't work and it was just a waste of time. Then I asked if he wanted to go grab a burger. All right, seems weird. You were going to prank him, and now you're just like, nah, nothing happened. To this day, 6 months later, I'm still paranoid that I left an alternate dimension, that I never left the alternate dimension. And every time something seems just slightly off, it petrifies me. Hopefully, it's just a phase that will pass soon. And it's been 6 months, but I don't think it's passing. But if there's one thing I could say about my experience with the elevator ritual, it would be this. This isn't just another internet urban legend. This is something else. The elevator ritual really works. I have no explanation for it. Perhaps there's a logical one, but for now all I can say is do not perform the elevator ritual. Credit to Neko Nadarit. And then the story, we have a link to it. So this is a no sleep story. Not a big fan of this story. I do like the idea of grounding a ritual story, a ritual pasta, in this manner of like, I heard about this legend, so I tried it. I would just me personally, I would take it away from the internet, not make it an urban legend. Even if you reference the internet, like this is a thing that I learned about on the internet and it comes from X, not the export, comes from, X Factor, wherever that is, this local ritual, people in Indonesia, came up with this, something more specific than just, I read it on the internet, Timmy Turner. But that's an issue I have. I would also say that there needs to be something more to the story in terms of what's going on in this dimension where you're alone. I like the idea of this is the alone dimension. What can you do there? Can you take something? It's weird that the elevator teleported in this dimension, that you get out of the elevator, turn around and the elevator isn't there, but then it just moved. I don't know what the purpose of that is. Why wouldn't the elevator just be in the same place? Why didn't we adventure into this place? I think that's where the fun of the story could really be. What does it look like, this desolated area with a red cross in the sky? We get the detail about the red cross in the sky, and that doesn't need to be explained, but I would like more information about it, a little more understanding as to, it's inexplicable. It's in the sky, and the light came down and from the cross and cast a red glow over everything. All of the buildings were just as they were in this dimension, but they were devoid of people. And then in the distance, I heard footsteps, and I began to worry because I was so far away from where I entered the elevator and, blah, blah, blah. And I had to run around, and I didn't actually see where the footsteps were coming from, but I knew that it was impossible to get back to the elevator. So I saw another elevator and wondered if I could enter through there and do these kinds of things. You could do something interesting with this concept. I think that it was just kind of an idea that someone had, and then they got bored with it and wanted it to end. And when you're getting bored with a story, other people won't want to read it. It's got to be something that you're enthusiastic about. This is my feedback for that. Let me know what you think down below. If you enjoy this, definitely check out the Fear Fiction Podcast, where myself, Abysme, and Slime Beast read and critique short horror stories from around the internet of all varieties, types, qualities. We take a look at everything. SCP, No Sleep, even Let's Not Meet here and there. With all of that in mind, it's a lot more entertaining than this. Let's get on to our sponsor of the day, which is Janky Roadside Motel. Janky Roadside Motel. You know what that's for. There's a strip club right next to it.